Hello and welcome to Balls on a Tray, the inexplicably named gaming podcast. This is season 3, episode 16, and we're recording this on the evening of Wednesday, the 11th of April, 2018. I'm Tony Chandler, and with me tonight, not Simon Allen, because he's not with me tonight, but John Brown, producer John. Hi, John.
Wow, I got my full name and everything. That's it. The myth has been shattered.
I know. People thought your surname was something like Fernandez or something.
Yeah,
it turns out to be Brown.
Or just producer John. That's it.
That was your name.
It's actually called producer John. Good evening, and thank you for having me on. It's lovely to be here.
Yeah. It's really weird to have you in Simon's chair. I mean, like, you're a bit big for it.
Yeah,
but
it's
like,
and the little feeding tray gets in the way and stuff. But I'm on it.
It's like big shoes to fill, but small underpants. So you should be all right.
Well, bless you. I mean, not.
See, every time I've not been on this podcast, I get the shit ripped out of me. So I feel like I had to put a dig in there against Simon, even though he's a lovely bloke.
Even though he is lovely, yeah. But never mind. But it's nice to get an introduction. I don't think I've ever had an introduction.
Normally you're normally in the back room, aren't you?
It's
so
true.
sort of hiding behind the curtain as such, just pulling the strings like the guy from
The Wizard of Oz. There you go. Yeah,
That's
just to
it.
continue
Yeah,
the
that's
metaphor.
it.
That's it. Yeah.
Keep the reference going there, but yeah. Anyway, let's introduce our special guest. Our special guest tonight, Victor Anfu. Hi, Vic.
Hello, guys. Thanks for having me back.
No problem.
So always good to have you on, my friend. And you couldn't make it before because you were screwed by your internet connection, as I recall.
That's correct. I got to say, I've been with Sky for about 8 years, and for the past 6, this just goes to show how lazy I am. For the past 6 years, I'd had a problem with Twitter in the sense that anytime I connected to my Wi-Fi on my phone, in the meantime, I'd had about 6 or 7 phones. Images just would not load, and they would load on my laptop or on tablets, but just not on the phone. And I just could not work it out at all, and it took me about 6 years until I decided enough is enough, and I switched provider from Sky to BT. And it's really bizarre because literally the very day that we switched over, that problem disappeared. So I still can't understand exactly how this problem occurred or what the root cause of it could be, but that's what happened. But the downside to that is that, as I'm sure you know, once you switch provider, they spend about a week testing your line, and the speed goes up and down, and the connection goes
generally fucking you up.
Yes, basically. So I just could not guarantee a stable internet connection for when I had my invitation first time round, and I felt really bad about that. But so far so good. Before this call started, or before the recording started, we'd been on for about 15 minutes, give or take-ish, and I think we've had no issues of any kind. So yeah.
It's a bit worrying that that's your sort of gold standard. It didn't fall over for 15 minutes. I mean, you imagine that was how you sort of got, how you got your performance review at work. Well, he didn't fall over for 15 minutes. 5 stars.
5 stars. I'm easily pleased. I mean, I guess it just goes to show what I spend my internet doing for 50 minutes at a time. As long as I can get a special video going for 15 minutes, it doesn't matter.
What, 15 whole minutes? Good God, man. What are you,
I like to overcompensate.
You're some kind of god.
Watch for 1 minute, imagine for 14. My missus is listening and watching, and she can't believe what she's let herself in for.
I think
and she's nodding.
We should get her on the podcast one day. We really should.
We should do. But she's giving me that look that says you sleep with a person, you have a child with a person,
and you still
don't know that person.
We should do that. Should do that kind of thing, like from music, like the people behind, like the woman behind the man.
Exactly.
We could have a little Balls on a Tray spin-off, and we could meet Mrs. Producer John, and Mrs. Me and Mrs. Victor. I think that would be. I think we'd learn a lot about people from discovering the long-suffering women behind the scenes.
Absolutely.
My missus, her Twitter biography has just got 2 words: Xbox widow, and I think that just explains what she is.
Fair enough.
Well, I mean, I've got a wife who is like a week away from giving birth, and I'm in here doing this podcast. So if you suddenly hear me drop the mic and run out, then you'll have to fill for me, because there is a very small chance that she could pop midway through this podcast, in which case I'd have to call the baby Balls, obviously.
Wouldn't that be awesome? That the baby's first appearance would be on Balls on a tray.
Absolutely.
It's just the sound of screaming.
Do you
Tony, mind, love? I'm trying to do a podcast.
If you could do that, that would be really, really good for ratings.
Well, good publicity. Yeah. Well, the other day we went for a hospital appointment. On the way home, we went in Debenhams and we had a coffee in the little Costa in Debenhams. And I was like, if the baby comes now, we'll have to call it Debbie.
Yeah.
Do you know? I don't even know if this is 100% true, but certainly, many years ago, when I was still living in London, I was working with a lady who was about to give birth, and I got to be honest, she worked right up until her due date. Okay, so she incredible stamina. My missus, I think she said sod this, and she went on maternity 3 months before her due date. But this lady, she was there right up until the end, and she had told us that apparently if you give birth in mother care, they will give you free nappies up until, I don't know, until you don't need them anymore. I mean, do we know if that's true?
I have heard that, yeah.
I'm getting down there. I'm going to force the missus to live there now. But nappies cost a fucking fortune, and free ones. I'd do pretty much anything for that. We could have a baby called Mother Care Chandler. I'd do that for the promotional material. In fact, if anybody else would like to write in, companies willing to pay me to name my baby, I'm quite happy to have Bic Chandler or.
That's some significant sponsorship there, isn't it?
It better be. I mean, I'm not fucking about. I'm not doing this for like 3 cream eggs and a curly whirly. We're talking cold hard cash, but and then name my baby. Go right ahead, because I can't think of a name really. It's a lot of effort, isn't it?
Yeah. Although I have to say, there's not a lot I won't do for 3 cream eggs and a curly whirly.
I did read that on the back of a toilet door once, actually. Producer John sucks blah for 3 curly whirlies and a cream egg.
There you go, 3 cream
and
eggs
vice versa.
Everybody's got how to start, haven't they?
Well, exactly. It's a jumping off point, let's say.
I'm glad that we mentioned curly whirlies and cream eggs, because we're sort of into Simon's territory, and I sort of miss Simon. I feel like if we're not wandering off course and talking about snacks of some description, then we're not really fulfilling his legacy.
It's true. Very true. So, are we saying that box is ticked?
Yeah, well, you could say that. Yeah, but that was another thing I read on the back of a door.
It's all happening.
The way to Simon's heart is through a curly whirly, isn't it?
I don't know, actually. Do you know what? I have a funny feeling Simon might not like curly whirlies. He's a very peculiar man. I mean, particular, but he's also very peculiar.
Both of those things. Yeah. I don't know. I can see Simon with a curly whirly. Eating it slowly and languorously.
I could see him eating it and being angry about it. For some reason, I could just picture Simon being angry whilst eating a curly whirly because he finds them annoying, right? And I don't know why. He probably loves them, but I got this image in my head of an angry Simon forcing his way through a curly whirly.
I'll tell you what it would be. He'd be complaining to us about the fact that the price has risen between now and 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And he'd scratch his head and say, what's different between now and then? Oh, I know. Okay, and then he would talk to us about all the different ingredients that have been put into the curly whirly, such weren't there before.
And Brexit, of course.
Yes, but then he'd segue into sort of like Nigel Farage is to blame somehow or some way.
Yeah.
I feel like he's here. I don't think we need him. You've replaced him quite spectacularly.
It's been really, really well.
Do you know, and this is a classic Simon move. I'm going to mention something completely irrelevant, just sort of bring it up. Did you know? I was watching a movie the other day, and I found out that that sort of famous Mexican song, da 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 da. Yeah, La Cucaracha. Do you know what that means?
It's a cockroach. Oh yeah,
the cockroach. Yeah, Victor's correct. I did not know that. It's about a cockroach with a missing leg. That song. I'm like, what? This is insane. Unless someone's been having a massive laugh on Wikipedia, that is genuinely because somebody in a movie called somebody like Cucaracha and said that like a cockroach, and I was like, cockroach? Surely that lovely little ditty that everyone knows is not about a cockroach. So it's about a cockroach
with the missing leg.
With a missing leg.
That's very specific, isn't it?
It even went so far as to specify on Wikipedia that the 5/4 or 5/6 time signature, I'm not much of a musician, is there to represent the missing leg.
Wow.
Now that I did not know.
That's spectacular.
No, I
information.
didn't know that. I didn't even know that that's what La Cucaracha meant. I'm like, how can a jolly little song be about a cockroach?
See,
It's just ruined
every
it for me
day's
now,
a school
frankly.
day, isn't it?
It is, and that's the only thing I learned in 2 weeks.
Well,
It's half term, isn't it?
have you not had your final class or expectations setting for the birth and stuff like that?
No,
do
the
practice
class is all
runs or
finished a
something?
while back. So the only thing that we've been doing now is just basically I'm getting like we've done the sort of theory, and now I'm getting the kind of practical feedback from the 3 people who have had their baby already in the group, you see.
Right.
And in fact, one of them is currently in the process. By the time you hear this, they will almost definitely have had their baby. So that's going to be 4 out of 9 babies delivered.
Wow.
And so it's all pretty exciting. I'm getting this hands-on feedback of WhatsApp from this group, and everyone's saying, "Oh, the baby's coming, the baby's coming." Everyone's all, well, good luck. And then it's all like, "Fucking hell, I'm knackered. I want to die," and all this stuff. So I've got a lot. It's actually made me. I was kind of looking forward to it a bit, and then all this started, and I'm like, "Oh dear, this might be quite hard work."
Yeah.
I guess the only thing I can say to you, right, is make sure that when you go to the hospital that you've got I don't know, a phone bank of some sort or a spare charging cable, because before the action starts, it's actually a very, very boring process. So like my missus, she had an iPad, I had my iPhone back then, and we sort of like burned through so much energy, or shall we say so many charges. But the downside to us is that the little fella was a week delayed. It was actually quite awful. So we sort of like trundled back and forth between home and the hospital, and the missus got pessaries and juice. She got in juice. She got, oh my god!
Yeah,
I mean,
she
my
loves
missus is sitting
that
right
you're
there.
talking about this, doesn't she? She loves that you're
It's
talking
like-
out loud about
It's
this.
my party trick, okay? But I've got to say this, and I'm probably going to get a box afterwards, but this story is just too good not to share. So obviously one of the examinations that they do is to try and see just how far along you are with your cervix and stuff. And then I saw a doctor with, thank God, tiny hands. My missus. He was wearing her like a sock puppet. I just could not believe my eyes. I was just,
Oh, that is too good. Wearing her
God.
like, sorry, I'm
if
going to
that
clip that.
happens,
He was wearing
leave the
her
room.
like a sock
A
puppet.
sock puppet, yeah. The thing that made me laugh is when Vic used the word cervix then, before all this stuff, I thought a cervix was like one of those old handheld games consoles.
Oh my
Turned out
god!
I was miles off base there. I had no idea. I'd say, do you know what the worst thing about having a baby so far, given we haven't actually had the baby and going through the pregnancy, and the wife's all swollen up and she's getting a bit of backache and the bladder's been squished into the size of a pea and all this, so all those bad things for her. But for me, the worst thing is I can't laugh at the word vagina anymore. It's just ruined it for me. It's just like it's just I've heard it too many times now in a sensible context.
Yeah, I mean,
It's just disgraceful.
so
I don't want to give you a spoiler, but if you sort of like, if the word vagina has been spoiled for you already, she hasn't given birth yet, okay?
No, wait. I said the word vagina has been spoiled for me, not the vagina has been spoiled for me.
Yeah.
There is a very subtle and important difference.
Of course. Of course.
well, we'll have an update later then.
Well, yeah, we've gone from cream eggs to vaginas, so I feel like we're covering all the bases here. No, I mean, genuinely though, the next podcast is due in 2 weeks' time, by which time we should either have the baby or be in the process of being inducted, inducemified. I'm not sure what the word is. Yeah.
Jeez.
So yeah, I have to figure out what's happening with the next podcast, because I probably will have a newborn baby that's 1 or 2 days old at that point. So I don't know. The next one might be a me-free podcast, or perhaps just me just sleeping throughout the podcast, snoring and occasionally farting.
You know, if she could time it well, I mean, if she would like to show some commitment to the cause, we could actually do it with you live at the birth. That would be kind of cool.
You can imagine the look. I mean, like, as if it wouldn't be bad enough, like, launching into a podcast surrounded by doctors and nurses. It would just imagine me saying, "Hello and welcome to Balls on a Tray."
Yes, exactly.
Like they're all standing there, you know, like.
Perfect.
I am joined
Halfway.
by my doctor,
Yeah.
the gynecologist, Dr. John.
halfway through the cesarean, you know. Oh, I've dropped the mic into the cavity. It may not be a cesarean. That was just, yeah, I don't know. Oh, it's scary. Oh, we have to stop talking about this.
Let's stop talking about it. Let's talk about something else instead. So I wrote down a thing in the stuff to mention in the notes. So I know I'm kind of getting into it a little early, but it's games related. I spotted a headline which I actually wrote down before I found out that Simon wasn't coming on. But I know that Tony, you've got one, and that was Dark Souls Remastered is on the Switch. What I was going to say is that a title that belongs on the Switch? And also, would you ever play Dark Souls on the Switch?
Well, I think that was very much a targeted at Simon question, as you said. I've never played Dark Souls, and I played a bit of Bloodborne, and I was like, what the hell is this? It did not keep me interested. I was like, well, it's just very impenetrable, and I think that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I like my limited gaming time now between work being insanely busy for ages and knowing I'm not going to have any time to play once the baby's born. So I was like, no, I'm binning this off. So I didn't give it a fair swing, got to admit, but I just, had limited time to play and thought, no. So yeah, my understanding is Dark Souls is like Bloodborne, and Bloodborne was like, I don't get this.
Okay. So, I know that when, going back several episodes when you were debating getting a Switch, and the thought process was that after the little Tony or Tonya, you can spell Tony with an I.
Tonya is a girl, so no, it won't be a Tony unless it's with an I.
Tony with an I is not Tonya. Sorry, any Tonyas? I've just offended Tonyas now, haven't I? Damn it. When little Tony with an I is born, and you're doing the wee small hours stuff with your eyeballs hanging on your cheeks, that you were going to get the Switch and just do a little bit of Super Mario or something like that. Is that still the thought process and the plan around that?
That is the game plan, yeah. The Switch is sitting there. It's on charge. It's all ready to roll. I'm not playing it much. I've played a little bit of Mario here and there, but I hardly touched it because I'm just thinking I'll save that for when I sort of, around the house trying to deal with baby and stuff. Maybe I'll have 10 minutes here and there. Maybe people listening with kids are probably going, what the hell is he on about? He's not even going to have 10 minutes. You know what I mean? But down the line, I'll get more time, I'm sure, even if it's not in the first few weeks. So yeah, it's going to be tricky, but that's why I bought the Switch. And part of the reason is that. So I'm going to look and see how that works out. I can report back on how well that works and whether it turns out to be a crazed pipe dream, like the kind of insane ramblings of a man without children.
Yeah.
We'll find out. I mean, you've got kids, Victor. Can you remember the newborn phase? Was there any time for gaming, or was it just not happening?
Well, let me see. I remember sort of like the last month before the little fella was born, there was a feverish mix of decorations, painting, and waiting for the baby. So I played loads and loads on my Xbox before the baby was born. Then the baby was born. And then I played lots and lots of Xbox afterwards as well. So,
Did I ever tell you that you're my hero?
I think, obviously, he sort
Oh, no.
Oh, he's jinxed it.
Ooh,
He's
hello.
bragged about his connection working, and
then he went away, but now he's back. So no, carry on.
So it survived for about 40 minutes.
14 minutes. You see, that's the uncharted territory for me here. But what I was going to say is, obviously, he try and sort of do as much as he can to help out and whatever else. But the reality is that the majority of the child rearing is done by the mummy, just for the fact that she's got the equipment to, to pacify the little fella, So, and one thing I didn't appreciate until the baby was born is that the feed can take for hours. I just thought, because like a baby's stomach is about this size, okay, that a baby will just take one big gulp and then it'll be full. But
what, like necking a pint?
The little fella, he would be there nestling away for an hour and a half, or maybe even 2 hours. What do you do then?
Hey! Do you think that maybe he wasn't feeding? He was just milking it.
Oh, dear God.
No, when you said about necking a pint, I just thought about like they showed us at the course like all these little like marbles of different sizes. And this is the baby's stomach, like the size of like a normal marble when it's a newborn, like a tiny marble, and then the size of like the ones that we used to call like what do you call them, like daubers or whatever,
Bullseyes.
like the kind of mid-sized ones. There's bullseye. There's about I think there's a different regional word for marbles in every different region, but one of the slightly larger ones and all that. And yeah, so I just see this image now of the baby there like sitting at a bar like slamming back a shot
Shots
of breast milk, like different varieties of it, because there's that first breast milk you get which is a bit like Bailey's, and then you get like kind of the runnier one later, and all the different sorts.
Excellent.
And the first poo is apparently like a very small Guinness as well, so that's quite
Lovely.
Well, I mean, they're not wrong about that. Apparently, they call it meconium, and it's just a mixture of hair and bile and other stuff, right?
It sounds like a nice gem that you'd see on like QVC, and this lovely meconium ring is yours for just $18.99.
I guess what I should say though is that you've got the wrong. How can I say? You've got the wrong viscosity there. Okay, it's not Guinness.
Harder than diamond.
No, think of it more as black toothpaste. Okay, that's what it is. It's like it's squeezed out and it's sticky. It's hardcore, and it's quite difficult to get off actually. So
did it get stuck on your toothbrush?
Okay.
It's got superb cleaning qualities. That's why I've got this wonderful Hollywood smile.
Jet black Hollywood smile.
Yes. But the first time he did it, it was quite funny because he must have been about 25 minutes old. Okay, so he was in his little baby cot, and the nurse was very keen for me to start changing nappies because he's clearly doing a bit to ensure that the work balance between the genders is evened out. Okay, so she's like, "You are the man. You're going to do the nappies." So she was trying to get me the nappy, turned my back, turned around, and then he squeezed out a roll of black toothpaste out of his ass. And he's like 25 minutes old. And then the nurse made me laugh so much. I said, "Oh shit, he's just done a big poo." And she's like, "Don't worry about it. The laundry will sort that out." Just got the crappy bed sheets and just yanked it down the chute, and that was the last I saw of that. So,
not my problem.
yes.
And that's what you did for 6 months after that, until you found all the bed sheets in a pile outside your window.
She taught me the wrong thing, but yes, that was essentially it.
Oh my God, I'm not looking forward to that. In fact, you know what? I'm not looking forward to almost any of this. Why did I do this? What was I thinking?
I just don't know.
I have
They're
no
just
answers
sort of
for
like,
No, I don't either, to be honest. I'm just fuck.
But yeah,
Dear, oh
but
dear.
I don't know. It's like, I mean, it's obviously it's a rewarding thing after he's left and become rich and famous and pays for your retirement. So.
I mean, I don't know if you heard a while back I was saying about the great lie, which is that all my friends told me, "Oh, it's so rewarding, it's so rewarding." And then as soon as we said that the wife was pregnant, they were like, "Oh, it's such hard work." Well, hang on, this is a change of tune, you pricks.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only thing I could say is this, right? If the new arrival wasn't your child, okay, you would never, ever, ever allow a housemate of this kind to move into your house, okay? Completely selfish. It's just like not prepared to pull his own weight and messy and noisy. I mean, it's just, you'd only do it for a child, but nobody else.
Do you know what? My old flatmates at university would probably agree with you there. Because I was the one. I was the lazy fuck that did nothing apart from get pissed, sit there with a bottle in my mouth, shit myself, and just, like lounge around in my own filth. It was brilliant. Best days of my life.
Best days of our lives, yes.
Okay, well, let's move on and actually talk a little bit about games. I know John tried.
I did try to try deviate us back on track to what we're talking about. I've got a new working title for the podcast. It may not make it to the end, but the new working title for this episode is Licorice Toothpaste.
I think that sums up the kind of output you get from this podcast.
I thought he was going to go with wore her like a sock puppet, but I think
I do like sock puppet.
Oh dear. There we go then.
Oh dear God, I just love it. I just love the way you said very small hands, like Austin Powers talking about carnival folk. Very small hands.
Small hands. Right. So.
Where is Simon tonight? Anyway, he said some gig or something.
Yeah,
he said.
so Simon has gone to a concert, which apparently has been in his diary for the last year, but remembered that he was going on Monday. And I have to say that since I said, what was happening and told Sarah about it, so, oh, who's he going to see? So, I don't know. Well, did you not ask? No. All I know is he's not going to be there. That's my MO. If Simon is there, that's great. He's there. If he's not there, I don't really care where he is. He's just not there, and that's a problem we've got to deal with. Oh, you should have asked.
Yeah, no, I'm curious now. We should have a Google and see if we can find out who's playing. I think he said in Wales, so we've got clues.
What?
So I think he said Wales. I'm sure he mentioned Wales. I don't know why you go to Wales, but I mean, unless you're going for. Well, yes. I mean, we've offended the rest of the country, so fuck it. Let's do Wales too.
We've offended an entire gender so far. So,
well, yeah, but men, we get it good enough.
That's true. Yeah. So we probably do need to find out, if only to set my better half's mind at rest, because she does worry.
Yeah. Well, I speculated that it could be the Wurzels on a comeback tour, but he didn't confirm or deny that.
He didn't bite, did he?
No, he didn't. I was disappointed. I dangled that little fly out there and he left it hanging. Tangled out my fly and left it hanging. Oh, God. Right. Yes. So games. Vic, you're the guest. You're going to tell us what you've been playing.
Well, I've only been playing one game. And before I say this, I'll just say, I mean, obviously, we all know that the Xbox is my preferred console of choice. And I really do feel as if my curse of choosing the most unpopular console for each generation has struck again. It's just really quite awful, because there's just been so few. I mean, I don't want to say so few games, because that's not true. There have been a fair bunch of games coming at a fair clip, but nothing really on the scale of Assassin's Creed Origins or Far Cry 5 for at least
ever.
Yeah, for a long time. I'm trying to think now what the last major, shall we call it AAA releases? I can't really remember the last time I had like a AAA release on the Xbox One, and I don't know if you guys feel that same way. I mean, I know the PlayStation gets a few more, but it's also not coming quite as often or as regular as it was in the last generation. And I was just wondering what your thoughts were and why that is. Is it just that games are becoming much more expensive and it's just that much harder to turn a profit, or?
So I was thinking about this because I finished off the stuff that I was running through, the big titles I was running through, and the DLC add-ons and stuff like that. And I also played Knack 2. I don't know if I mentioned that.
No, fuck.
So I finished off all that kind of stuff, and I mentioned last episode, I got Burnout Paradise, so I've been playing around that. That kind of pales after a while, because it's genuinely just turning the handle and doing the same thing over and over again. It's fine when you're in the mood for it, but otherwise it's a bit boring. I didn't like Rhyme. I can't play Jack and Daxter, and I was frankly a little bit stuck for something to do. And I think you're right, Vic. It's the big titles when they come are mahoosive, but it seems that certainly for the ones that it seems we like, the gaps between them are becoming larger. So I mean, I got 3 games on my list. Burnout Paradise, which I have been playing, and when I'm in the mood, I do enjoy. Surge, which I bought for the Xbox One, which is a sort of it's kind of like a brawler. I don't know. Have you heard of Surge? Do you know Surge?
I have not heard of it, actually.
Okay, so basically the conceit behind it, and I won't spoil anything because I've literally just looked at it, is you're a scientist working for a company that makes some kind of robotic stuff. Something goes badly wrong, and you wake up and you've basically had an exosuit effectively bolted to you. The entire facility is in ruins, and robots have run amok, and basically you've got to fight your way through to the end, bolting on bigger weapons and skeleton armor and stuff like that. Bigger battles, bigger bosses, different weapons. It's a brawler. It's basically a weapons brawler with bigger and bigger exoskeletons and stuff like that. Looked kind of cool, so I thought I'd give that a go. And that might be a little bit of fun. It looks like there might be a half-decent story behind it as well. But I also started playing again Mass Effect 2 because I played Mass Effect a few months ago. So I loaded up Mass Effect 2 on the Xbox One, obviously running in 360 emulation. And you know what?
Are you into Mass Effect then, John?
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever mentioned it. That it's
no, I'm not sure if you have mentioned it. Yeah,
it's something that I have a passing interest in.
Okay.
Yeah. That and Tomb Raider as well. I kind of like Tomb Raider.
Do you like Tomb Raider or do you like Lara Croft? There is a difference.
Yes.
Again,
Yes.
a subtle discrepancy.
Yes. Just yes. So I was looking around. Sorry, I've got a frog. I was looking around for something that I could get me teeth into story-wise that wasn't just, thrapping and city breaking stuff. And Surge, when I saw it, was quite a way down the Microsoft Store list. And I skipped past an awful lot of stuff, which was just shooters and more shooters and add-on packs for the same shooters and stuff that I really didn't care about. And it just caught my eye, and I think it's been out a while, but it was just never on my radar because I haven't actually switched the Xbox One on since for a good few months since last time I played Forza. So so there's, I think you're right. There's a specifically on the Xbox, I think there's a dearth of, I don't know, non-shooter titles. If you're not into shooters, there's pretty much
or driving games.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a great driving platform, but if it's not your thing and you don't do shooters like me, I can't do first person, then they're pretty thin on the ground.
Thing is, I was just looking back while you were talking there, John. I was just back flicking through our website, ballsonatrade.com, and looking at what we talked about for all of the previous podcasts. And I went back about 10 podcasts, so about 20 weeks. And yeah, I mean, we were talking about add-ons to Horizon Zero Dawn, which is a PlayStation exclusive. And yeah, until Far Cry 5 this time, which me and Vic are going to talk about in a minute, there's not been a lot of huge games on that list. I mean, obviously Mario was discussed in that interval, and that really, nobody can say that's not a brilliant game. But I haven't talked about it as much because I've not played it that much. And I think Simon did really like it, despite originally saying it wasn't as great as everyone said. But yeah, looking back on that, there's not been any huge games for a while.
Yeah, and I mean, something like Mario, I mean, yes, it's massive, but it's also specific. It's not one of those that, is going to come out on, the Xbox and then the PlayStation, or the PlayStation and then the Xbox. It's very much it's a Nintendo title, isn't it? So
yeah, then it's not going anywhere, is it?
Exactly. So I would say it's almost of its own genre as well. You can't say it's like a brawler or a shooter or an action RPG or anything. It's just Mario. It's Mario Kart.
Well, it's a platformer, isn't it? I guess really that's all it is.
So, but on the box consoles rather than something like the Switch, it's been thin. It really has.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we just sort of like almost didn't mention Assassin's Creed Origins at all. But I guess as lavish as it was, as impressive as it was actually quite a average game. Now that I think about it,
I would agree.
Origins kind of passed the podcast by because nobody played it. Yeah, I sort of said after the last Assassin's Creed, I was kind of done with Assassin's Creed, and Origins sounded really good, and I was tempted to go back, but I had other stuff on the go, so I didn't play it, and Simon isn't going back to it. So because of that, this podcast kind of slipped by.
Yeah,
so, but you played it then?
Yeah,
Vic?
I got. Sorry, Vic. I'll just say I got it and talked about it for about 30 seconds, which is that it kind of just felt all right. After Zero Dawn, it was just nothing special.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I'll say this: I haven't played Zero Dawn myself, but let's just say this: it looked fantastic. I have to say, the idea of playing in Egypt, it was brilliant. So they've done obviously a whole load of work into it, the different costumes and the different landscapes, and I have to say this is the first Xbox One X enhanced game that I played on my humble 1080p TV, so clearly they've done some upscaling jiggery pokery, and it really did look impressive compared to every other game that played up until that point. But the game itself, and I don't know if this is a fair criticism to make, but it doesn't seem to have a huge evolution in terms of the gameplay from other Assassin's Creeds, in the sense that you get into an area, your map expands, and suddenly you've got different places to go to catch, collect certain objects, to kill certain people, and it really just sort of like just seemed almost like an identity kit type of game in a completely different setting. And I don't want to sort of run down the clearly talented people that worked on this game and stuff, the graphic designers, the sound engineers, and God knows what else. I'm sure they worked their hearts out, but it sort of seemed like a game that I'd played for every other year for at least 6 or 7 years.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's too harsh to say, because
No, I mean,
but it just I mean, I guess like just like John, it just doesn't stand out. John didn't sort of like give it a glowing review in his a 4-second sort of like talk up about it, and it's the same with me. I wouldn't sort of like tell you, a person with limited gaming time, that this is a game that you have to sit down and play, just because it is just average.
Yeah.
You've played it before.
Yeah.
You've had the experience before.
but this thing, to be fair, that's why I didn't buy Assassin's Creed Origin, because I played a lot of Assassin's Creeds, and I thought, you know what, they are kind of all the same, and that's generally fine. But what we originally started about 10 minutes trying to talk about and never actually mentioned is Far Cry 5. And everything you've just said about Assassin's Creed as being a bad thing, I think is true of Far Cry, but I generally consider it to be a good thing. Like, the new Far Cry game is a Far Cry game, right? It's got the outpost, it's got you kind of wandering about you've got your upgrade paths, it's got your hunting, it's got incredible good graphics, really good looking, brilliant sound, total mad shit happening all over the place, like that really hilarious stuff I always used to call like your kind of, I always associate it with GTA, like those kind of open world games. There's something mad happens, but Far Cry kind of takes it to the next level. You're getting attacked by a bear when a plane comes by and strafes you and crashes into a pylon, and then the plane crashes on top of the bear, and the bear catches on fire. Then it runs off and sets fire to someone else who runs into the road and causes a truck to crash and explode. And it's just, Far Cry gets mental with it, and I really like that. I mean, some people, you see loads of people share videos of it being glitchy and silly, but it's just really fun. That's some of the things I like about Far Cry. It's so mad and over the top sometimes. And although they tend to have these kind of fairly serious bad guys and cover some interesting and quite dark issues in the main story, they also have these completely batshit mental side missions. Like, there's one I did called Special Delivery, where you are taking a pregnant lady to the hospital, and you're like racing, you're like cutting through trees and running over deer, and you hit a jump, and then like a crashing plane comes over. It's just totally mental, but it was great fun.
I can see why that mission spoke to you.
Yeah, and it also made me laugh, because when you arrive after driving through a tree and crashing into all this stuff, and all this mad stuff happens, and then there's like a cutscene, and then she comes out like in a wheelchair with a baby all born. I thought, this is easy. So as long as I can get to the hospital, right, it's a piece of piss. Then cutscene, and then the baby comes out.
Don't forget the hints that the game tried to give you. Never give your missus your hand, because she will squeeze the shit out of it.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, that mission is just an example of a crazy one. Obviously, as you say, did speak to me for a very obvious reason. But the game, I'm really enjoying. But at the same time, the core of it is just pure Far Cry. Yeah. And I don't know why it's that much better than 4. And it's like 3 I really, really enjoyed, and 4 I enjoyed, but it left me a little bit cold. And 5 I'm just bang on board with again. And I don't really know. I can't honestly say that much has changed. The stuff they've changed is so minor. It's like tweaks and tunes rather than a full radical overhaul.
I guess perhaps certainly for me, I haven't played as many Far Cry games as I've played Assassin's Creed games. I think with Assassin's Creed games, I've maybe played about 8 or 9 of those things now.
Yeah, I guess it is a lot.
And with Far Cry, I'll say this: I've not played Far Cry 1 and 2. I've missed out on 3, unfortunately. Played Far Cry 4, and that was the first time I thought the game was broken when I first got killed by a random animal. There was a hippopotamus that came by, or a rhinoceros, and it just sort of like attacked me. And I thought, what's happening? Why am I dying? And I did it again, and I was just about to go on Twitter, this game sucks. And then I realized So this is all part of the charm, you know. And
Yeah,
what
yeah.
they have done is they have toned down these random, really, really wild animals that will just kill you on the spot. I find that you just don't. I haven't died as much now in Far Cry 5 as I did in Far Cry 4.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, one of the things that was quite annoying in some of the Far Cry games is like an eagle or something would just fly down and attack you, and it wasn't like you could even do anything. It would just suddenly be in your face, getting on your wick, and that doesn't really happen. There are points actually where you do get attacked by eagles in Far Cry 5, but you've got to go to sort of specific points on the map. They don't tend to just drop on your head and piss you off like they used to in the old games. And yeah, I think that's everything they've done is kind of an adaptation, a tuning, a slight, so they're like, well, that was a bit annoying. We've taken that out. There was even a joke. I've played Far Cry 2, 3, 4, Far Cry Primal, and Far Cry 5 now. And there was even a Far Cry 2 joke in Far Cry 5 where one of the guys walking by was saying something about, oh, my gun jamming, that's like the worst thing I can imagine. Because in Far Cry 2, your gun would jam and it would get stuck, and people hated that. They fucking hated it. And but I actually liked that. I thought it was a kind of cool feature. I think I liked everything about Far Cry 2. It was quite different to some of the later ones, but I was on that camp. There were a lot of people hated Far Cry 2, and I really enjoyed it. But then, with 3 and 4, it moved on in the right direction, I think, which made everyone a bit happier with it. But I don't know. It's funny actually. There's some Far Cry's. There got a few meta references. There's a film director character that does this kind of side mission, and he's filming Far Cry Blood Dragon: The Mission, the movie. And he's sort of in the wilderness of Montana filming this movie. And when you do this mission for him, he sort of says, oh, yeah, I'm working on Far Cry Blood Dragon. He's like, yeah, I was going to work on the original Far Cry, but I couldn't be bothered with that because I got so much crap about the story not making any sense and it all being a bit over the top and all this. And he's like, but Blood Dragon was great. Everyone enjoyed that. He's like just sort of like taking the piss out of like the game and the fans almost as well. But I don't know. It just... How does it look on the Xbox? Have you got the Xbox One X or just the Xbox One?
Oh, no, I've got the Xbox One X. So obviously what makes it a bit difficult is that I don't have the standard Xbox, so I don't have a baseline to compare it to. Yeah,
I have that. I have that issue with the Pro. Yeah, the PS4 Pro. I come on here and say, "Oh, this game looks so good," and then I can't really tell whether other people playing it on a normal PS4 would get that same experience.
That's it. So I mean, all I can say is that it's a very, very polished game in the sense that you don't see, certainly for me, I don't experience any pop-up of any kind. The one thing which I have found a bit annoying is that you can sort of leave your car parked to one side, go and dispatch humanely or inhumanely with some bad guys, and then turn around, your fucking car's gone. And that seems to happen quite a bit.
It's interesting. I haven't had that on the PlayStation, but I am wondering if it's that game, enemies and good guys will just jump in cars and drive off in them. So I'm wondering if it's not so much a glitch as just other characters in the game, like in-game characters, taking your car and just buggering off with it. I've seen them do that, which is quite amusing. Like, that's my car, you twat. They usually get an RPG up their tailpipe if they do that to me. But yeah, I don't know. One thing that's interesting is that you said about playing on the most unpopular console known to man. An interesting thing about Far Cry 5 is you do these. Actually, I really like these missions. They're called prepper stashes. Yes. And the idea is that you're in Montana and you've got all these kind of loonies who've got these bunkers all set up for like an end of the world doomsday situation, which has kind of occurred, which I find interesting because like it kind of Far Cry 5 kind of justifies all those kind of crazed gun wielding bunker owners all across America. They were like, yes, I knew I was right. But yeah, so you go around and you basically loot these bunkers to find these magazines that give you perk points, and the perk points are your upgrade points that you then put into your kind of upgrade tree, and you can choose to upgrade your stealth or your assault factors or whatever, and all that stuff. But what's fun about that is, and interesting, is that if you go into somebody else's co-op world, you can go around and do all their prepper stashes with them, and then you both get the prep points. So you get the perk points. So what I've been doing is between me and Rook has been on this podcast, and Jono and Neil, we've just gone around and we all sort of save up our prepper stashes, and then we team up and we all go in and we go and do like 4 or 5 prepper stashes in a row. So we've all kind of maxed out our skills really quickly by doing that, which I guess you can't do because you're Billy No Mates on the Xbox.
You're right. You have to make some new friends. But thanks for the idea. I didn't realize that because there's a few skills that I'd really like to get, and I've just got no idea how I can get those perks in one playthrough. But yeah, you've given me
I think if you do all the and that's the other thing. A lot of these perks are unlocked by challenges. So that's one thing they've changed. Actually, it used to be that a lot of the upgrades would be done by like hunting. You'd have to like hunt like 3 rhinos to make a wallet or something, and you were like, why the fuck can I not just make a wallet out of a cow? Why does it have to be made from 3 rhinos?
Why am I being so fastidious, so precious?
Yeah, and it'd be like 3 white rhinos as well, or something like that. They'd like, you know what I mean? It'd be genuinely like really obscure animals that you'd have to kill to make like an extra arrow or a bow for your, a bigger quiver for your arrows. It would have to be made out of like a hippo's scrotum or something. They were just like really random. So in this one, you can just unlock those things with these perk points, which you can find from the prepper stashes. They're also hidden around the map. I don't know if you found many, but there's a few hidden about the map, just in like little hidden spots. And like, there's like what I found was like a barn that you couldn't get into the opening, and you kind of like eventually found a way into it. And then in there was like one perk point, so you can build up like that. But the challenges are the key thing, where you kill 10 people with this, or kill 10 people with that, or do this 10 times and all that sort of stuff. They're quite interesting because they give you something to do, and they kind of force you to flick out the weapons and change around a little bit.
Yeah, I think that by the sounds of it, it sounds like that they've taken everything that was good and that people liked in the previous ones and just buffed it up a little bit and taken some of the rough edges off, like, you know, being attacked randomly by an eagle.
Yeah, I mean, it still has some rough edges, but that's kind of the charm of it in a way.
That's what I'm saying. It's, you know, the odd stuff that people like, you leave in. You don't say, well, it's not quite, you know, it doesn't fall in line with the aesthetic or whatever. Fuck it, people like it, you just leave it in. But the stuff that pisses people off and is perhaps just a little bit unnecessary, you get rid of that and you swap it for something else. So it sounds like that they've taken that and they've just given it a little bit of a polish. But I think, you know, talking about the comparisons between Assassin's Creed and Far Cry. I've not played Far Cry, it's a shooter, I can't play them. So it seems that the Assassin's Creed model, it looks like it's taking the framework and just putting different scenarios in it. And
I have to say, I did hear that Origins did do all of this kind of evolution, and it moved a few things on and tuned things and focused on the good and removed some of the bad. I did hear that. I have to say, I didn't play it myself, but that's what almost tempted me back to it, because I heard that actually they had done a lot of that.
But what I think they're missing is a narrative that carries you along. I mean, when I was playing it, I've got to be honest, I didn't play it for very long, so I may just have not got far enough. But I put my playtime was in hours, not just minutes. It just felt like I was just doing stuff because it was there, not because there was a reason to do it. And from what I've seen about Far Cry 5, and oh my God, are they advertising it? Do
you know what? Weirdly, I haven't seen any adverts for it, but then I don't really watch telly.
I mean, I listen to Radio X in the morning, and they are running some massively produced ads in Radio X. They've got some really cinematic TV ads, all fully acted out.
Well, there's a 30-minute thing on Netflix.
It's just
there's a 30-minute show on Netflix. I haven't watched it, but I heard about it.
They've properly produced some advertising around this. I mean, even just the audio stuff, it's properly produced. It's not just some bloke, you know, with some gameplay in the background saying, you know, play Far Cry 5 because it's really good. It's properly scenario acted out and stuff. So they're putting some effort into it. And I think that for me is saying this is something which has got a deep world, a story, a narrative that you're going to go through, and something which is going to carry you through the action, where you may get sidetracked and you might find a barn that is going to have something hidden inside. But that's great. It's not just something that you do because it's there, because like seems like there's nothing else to do. You do it because it's on the way to something else, or because it's something that you want to do rather than just because it happens to be there. I think that's the difference, and that was what helped Horizons Zero Dawn as well. Is that you had that underlying narrative that everything kind of hung off of, And you could go off and do all of the hunting missions and all that kind of stuff, and it would help you along the way. You didn't have to, but you did them because you wanted to, not because there was nothing else to do.
But one thing I would say to that though is, so in comparison to, shall we say, Assassin's Creed games, your protagonist or your antagonist even, Jesus Christ, which one is it? Is it protagonist?
The hero, antagonist is your enemy.
It's you. I'm trying to be smart, but I'm showing myself up to be a dumbass.
I could have said good guy, bad guy. It would have been fine.
How can you not tell the difference between? Anyways, I was just going to say that your protagonist in Far Cry 5 is silent. Okay, so he doesn't actually push the narrative along at all. It's just a story that keeps going. And in comparison to something like Assassin's Creed, for example, where strangely enough, I thought that your protagonist there was very engaging. Certainly one of the better ones. I'm just trying to remember Assassin's Creed 3, the first one, which was in North America, where you had the Native American as your main guy. He was probably the worst protagonist ever. It really was. I mean, even when he spoke in his own language, which I thought was just so, how can I say, it was just like a very, very flat delivery. There was just no passion in there. Yeah. He'd sort of like have a cutscene where he was talking about somebody that killed his mother, for example, and it sounded as if he was reading a teletext page.
Yeah, that's right. There was no depth or feeling to it, was there? And I think that was the problem with that character is, I mean, the whole thing, you just couldn't engage. You didn't really like them that much.
I have to say, I'm the silent protagonist thing. I used to like that. Like in GTA 3, it was done to good. And then they played on you not ever saying anything, but they don't say. I don't know. It feels a little bit old-fashioned, the silent protagonist now in Far Cry 5. I mean, I kind of like it because it's sort of supposed to be. It's that thing. It's supposed to be you, isn't it? You're in that situation. Because the thing about Far Cry is you're locked into first person the entire game. There's no third person in any of the cutscenes or anything. It's literally John's worst nightmare. So you're there, like, and you see the entire game through that character's eyes. Like, all the cutscenes, all that scenes. You never really see your character, apart from when you die, weirdly. It's the only time you ever really see your character. But you said he, by the way, Victor, you can pick a lady. I've got a lady character. I've got a really weird outfit. My Far Cry 5 character, she's got, the bottom half is the Rainbow Six Siege tactical outfit, like kind of the sort of tactical combats and boots. And she's wearing the Rainbow Six Siege kind of tactical gloves. And then she's got a roll up top that says badass, no troublemaker, on the top half, and then a pair of Victoria Spice sunglasses.
Nice.
It's quite a good look, I think. It's kind of like, I call it like, sort of combat couture. But yeah, no, it's just quite, it's that's the other weird thing about Far Cry. You get all this, like, you can spend loads of money on different items for your character, but you can't ever see your character because you're literally locked into first person. But yeah, I'm not sure about the silent protagonist. I kind of like the way you pretend it's you, but I think it's more interesting in a game when your character has a bit of a personality, even if that does cause a bit of a disconnect sometimes between what they are doing and what you would do.
Yeah, I think it's less so with first person, even though that it can be a little bit just boring sometimes when you're just effectively listening to other people's conversations and there seems to be no activity on your part. I mean, talk about Mass Effect games. That's, there's a character that you invest in because it's third party. You make them look how you want, but obviously you've got the male voice or the female voice, even though she has a great voice. There was one game which I can't bloody remember that. I think wasn't Destiny. Might have been Destiny, something like that. There was a tie into a television series for a brief period of time. And you played along with the game, and there was actually there was
a Halo TV show, wasn't there?
There was, but this was interactive, so some of the stuff that happened in the game was reflected in the TV show.
Oh yeah, you talked about this. What was it? You talked about this on the podcast.
I think it was called. Was it Deliverance? Is what it was called. I think it was
Deliverance,
something like that. Yeah,
maybe something. It sounds right. Yeah.
But your character there was also a silent protagonist, but it was third person, and that was just weird. Because you've got this character basically trolling around that you're controlling who never says a fucking word to anybody. Ever. Everything
Well,
is
that's GTA
just
3.
everything is just it's monologue by everybody else towards you, and occasionally it's reflected as like, oh, the silent type, right? And you're like, well, no, it's just they were too lazy to record some fucking dialogue. That's all. Because it wouldn't have been hard, but that was really odd. So I think you've if you're going to do that silent protagonist thing, you've got to do it well, because even if it jars slightly, it'll take you right out of the world, won't it?
One thing that's interesting with the Far Cry where you can choose like a male character, a female character, is they literally shout things like the baddies when they're chasing me, or shout things like, "We're coming to get you, little girl," and stuff like that, because I played as a girl character, and I assume that they say something else if you're playing as a man. I hope so, otherwise it would just be kind of weird, wouldn't it? It was sort of slightly more disturbing if they're shouting, "We're coming to get you, little girl," when you're playing as a man. But maybe they do.
Yeah,
maybe they're just trying to sort of emasculate you and make you cry so that you're easy to shoot. But yeah, I mean, but the weird thing is there are some of the missions, like these really crazy side missions called Clutch Nixon stunts. And they're like these kind of totally madcap checkpoint races in, like gliders, wingsuits, beach buggies, and it's all like driving through like flowery checkpoints, and it's this whole this really quite funny intro bits about Clutch Nixon and his exploits, and there's a little bit of voice on it. But when you're doing those, it's like they've just missed the trees, or they've hit the jump, or they've gone through the cliffs, and I'm like, why couldn't you have had he and she like you had throughout the whole rest of the game? But I guess that is kind of almost a spin-off side mission. I guess it's a bit of fun, so it doesn't matter so much.
Yeah, I gotta say this one thing about the Clutch Nixon missions. I don't know how you feel about them, but I found certainly for the flying one that the collision control is just not as accurate as it needed to be. So essentially, of the plane race, you are flying through canyon and the trees lined up on each side of the gorge. And what I found is that if you fly past the tree, what seems to be sort of like 6 or 7 meters different distance between you and the edge of your plane, you'll still clip it and fucking die. And that is why I spent about 2 hours last night trying to finish off how long did it take me? It's like a 3-minute circuit. Just to go around one single 3-minute circuit. 2 hours. 2 hours. Oh.
I've got 2 things to say to that. One, you must be shit. And 2, if you're not, then it must be a problem with the Xbox, because I haven't had that at all with the PS4. So there you go. That's my 2 very partisan answers to your.
That hurts here and here. Okay?
In the head, in the heart.
Yeah.
Double tap.
But yeah, it just would. Oh,
I will let you know if I run into a mission like that. I did do a flying one that was all through canyons and stuff like that, and I did not get bogged down in it, but maybe I just got lucky, or maybe you were just having a bad day. Were you sitting like right over to one side of the TV looking down it like at a really thin angle?
I just tried everything, okay? Up to the side, in front of it, standing up, sitting down. I changed inversion on the control pad, everything I could think of. I was just
crying,
praying, everything.
Oh man. Well, okay. Do you know what? I've lost the plot. Where on earth were we? What were we going on about?
We're talking about.
I think that's probably. Oh yeah, the Clutch Nixon stunts. Yeah, they're good fun. Like, and I don't know. I just really enjoy the whole game of Far Cry 5. I'm just as happy. What I like, it's like just a variety really. You sort of stuff like these mad Clutch Nixon stunts to up on top of a mountain and turn off the HUD and just take incredible screenshots. The scenery just looks absolutely beautiful. The driving in it's okay, not brilliant, but it's so much better than some other Ubisoft games, Watch Dogs, in that you can actually drive. The planes not as good as GTA, and neither are the helicopters, but they're good enough to get you about and to use them as weapons or methods of transport. But yeah, it's all just really well done, really nice looking, really polished. Loads in there, loads of side missions. As John says, and you don't feel like you're just doing the side missions because like it's like collecting the prepper stashes. Like it seems like you just go, well, we kind of are just going to get the points. But there's like one that's in a haunted house, and you go through the haunted house, and all like the ghosts and that kind of pop out on you and all that stuff. And there's some in like submerged under a river, and there's one where you find the place, and it's like at the top of a tower, and there's like a zip line, and you have to follow the zip line for about 3 miles to find the top of it, and then you do this different zip lining route all the way down. And there's several where you kind of rock climb your way up to a top of a point. They're all just like generally, a few of them are quite noddy, but they're all quite interesting. And there's even one, which is the maddest one yet, where you go to a house full of dogs, that the dogs have been locked into this house, and they've just shit everywhere. And one of the guys has fed the bunker key to one of the dogs.
Oh.
So you literally have to press a button to pick through the poo in order to find the key. And it made me think of Johnny Cox, who's been on this podcast a number of times, because he's always moaning about how games make you pick flowers. He's like, for fuck's sake, I'm like a burly man with a light machine gun, and the game makes me pick flowers. And he's always moaning about that. So I thought this is brilliant. Picking through dog shit, that's never been done before. Stick that in your Assassin's Creed.
Exactly. So, and this is kind of my point, is that with other things that you kind of have that rinse and repeat, when you're going to get a type of thing, that type of thing is usually in a place which looks like that, and you get into it by doing those things. And you may have different enemies or different levels or whatever it is that you got to do, but that there's a process to it. It's interesting and engaging when you look at it, and every single one is different and brand new, and you've got to think about it. And like you say, something like the tower with the zip lines, you look at it and you go, well, how the fuck do I get up there? Okay, well, the only thing that there is that wire, and you can choose to follow it or choose not to. And rather than just going, all right, so I go there and I knock that, and the ladder falls down, and I climb up to the top, and I've got to shoot the guy on the top who will drop something, which I'll then use to unlock the door to go down the stairs on the inside and open up the chest, and that's where the thing will be. It's really,
some of them are like that, to be fair. But
my point is that they're not all like that, and that you've got some variety and some engagement and some interest, and that takes time to think about. But there's a team of guys who are looking at this thing and going, well, all right, how can we make this different? I know, we'll have the dog shit the key out. I mean, what was it?
I don't know who thought of that.
How late at night was it when they came up with that idea? But it's.
I mean, the haunted house one is brilliant as well. It's just there's just some really interesting stuff, and there's like caves and all kinds of different stuff. Just really quite nice. What's also funny though is that like the kind of the outpost functionality which you've had in the last one, nearly all Far Cry games, is like, you've got this outpost with a couple of alarm bells, and there's guys patrolling, and you can try and take that. You can either just run in, like, machine guns blazing, or chuck bait in there so as to lure wild animals in to cause chaos, or you can just, or you can hide and snipe.
Oh, sorry, wait. Is that what the bait is for?
Yes, that's what the bait is for, yeah.
Oh my fucking god.
If you throw the bait at enemies or into a base, and then a bear or a wolf or something will turn up. That's what it's for, Vic. Yeah, that's one of the things about.
After I've played the game,
that is one of the things about Far Cry, actually, that there's so much in it. You can play it for ages and then discover something new about it, which I like. I mean, I only just discovered, for example, that there's like a whole different section of the shop where you can buy things like armor-piercing bullets, and there's like cluster rockets. So I've got this rocket launcher, the RAP-4 rocket launcher, with an upgrade so it locks on. And I once fired it, and instead of the rocket just going straight into the vehicle I was aiming at, it kind of went up in the air. There's a name for this type of rocket. I can't remember what they're called. It went straight up in the air and then kind of blasted like a whole load of mini rockets back down. It's a real thing.
Yeah,
it's a law or something.
I'll look it up and put it in the notes. There is it's a specific kind of munition, isn't it? Yeah.
But I've been playing it for loads of time, and I keep finding things out, which I really quite like. Given that I've played a lot of Far Cry games, it's not like I'm a complete amateur, but there's still lots of interesting stuff to find out. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I'd definitely recommend it. Interesting as well from a point of view of, I like to buy my games digitally, even though they tend to be more expensive. Far Cry 5 is top of the PlayStation Store charts at the moment. And I find that interesting because it didn't used to be the case so much that the big AAA titles would do that well in the charts. It was usually the smaller, digital-only titles mostly.
I'll tell you what, I've got a theory of that, right? I mean, basically, I think we've both been playing video games for long enough to sort of like accept the fact that big games usually tend to come out towards the end of the year to hit the Christmas rush. And for a game of this kind to sort of like come around about Easter time is a little bit unusual. And if there's one lesson to be learned by the people that make games or have these discussions or make these decisions, is that as gamers, we've got money all year round. Okay, please just release them right, because it's I really can't remember the last time a big game like this. I mean, obviously excluding Grand Theft Auto, because that game can come out any old time it wants to, and it will sell huge amounts. But any other AAA game, they don't usually tend to come around about this time, or sort of like in the holidays or just before the summer holidays, if you will.
Yeah, when did Horizon come out? That was not at the normal Christmas time, was it?
No, it was. I think it was actually early in the year. I think it missed Christmas.
Yeah, I thought it was early in the year. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to be said for that. I mean, maybe not in the middle of the summer when people are away or whatever, or they've got kids to look after and all that stuff. But certainly after Christmas, there's a big window there, 3-4 months, where there's not normally much out, and everybody's just about recovered from the spending. It really does bug me at Christmas. There's suddenly 10 brilliant games to play, and you end up kind of only half playing all of them. Yeah. And then something like Far Cry comes out, and at the moment, I mean, as I said last time, I'm still always playing GTA, I'm always playing Rocket League, etc., etc. But this is my modern game at the moment that is new and that I'm really getting into, and I'd expected to play it entirely single player, and I'm really enjoying how much fun it is in co-op as well. That's got to be said. It's so many of the vehicles have like a gun turret on the back or whatever, so having them playing it co-op just makes a lot of sense.
So is it a game that is there as much, because a lot of the bigger titles now, they're being released with multiplayer in mind rather than as a story / campaign that then has a world that you can do multiplayer stuff in. Does this feel like that there's been that compromise, or is it still a solid single player game if you wanted to do it that way?
Oh no, I mean it's basically it's much more a single player game that you can play co-op than it is a co-op game that you can play single player. It's like there are certain cutscenes where you're both playing effectively as the same person during kind of story based bits of the mission sometimes, and then you're both there in the mission, which doesn't make much sense, but they just kind of gloss over that because it is a single player game you can play co-op rather than the other way around. But they've also got this whole thing called Far Cry Arcade, which is this whole kind of multiplayer experience with loads of different modes. So like the Outpost, I really enjoyed doing the Outpost with friends in co-op, and I think in that mode you can do Outpost with a lot more of you, and you like try and do it stealthily, like with 4 of you coming in from different angles and all that stuff. And it's really quite fun. I haven't played that much of the arcade stuff, but it seemed to work quite well, and it seems quite effective. But the co-op for me and the single player is where I'm at with it. I'm just really enjoying it.
Because I just mentioned it because NAC 2 has a mode like that as well, where you can if you go back into the map, you can play it cooperatively, and you have a second NAC who's another player. I just thought I'd mention.
So you got a pair of knackers.
You do have a pair of spiky knackers. Yeah.
I tell you what, the gold standard for multiplayer games of that kind, I think, still are the Saints Row games, Saints Row 2, 3, and 4. They had perfect drop-in, drop-out co-op gameplay, which sort of, unfortunately, didn't sort of take away. In Saints Row, there wasn't any upgrading of any kind, really, but it was still fantastic in that you had the whole map, and one player could be on one side of the map, the other person could be on the other side of the map. You could do your mayhem and killing and whatever else. And Dead Rising 2, 3, and 2 and 3 basically. That was also a perfect. Was it just 2? I think it was just 2 actually.
You just raised something which I don't really understand why Far Cry 5 does it, which is if you go too far apart, then your co-op partner, if you're the host, your co-op partner gets pinged back to you. You've got quite a long range. It's not like you would like tethered to each other, but if they wingsuit off in one way and you wingsuit off the other, they get teleported back behind you. I don't really know why it does that. I'm not sure if it's some kind of technical limitation or if it's just a decision to keep you playing together rather than just in the same world.
Yeah, maybe the one that it's about, because it's about creating the world around you, isn't it? So there's a sphere within which you occupy, which is not necessarily the entire world. And
I mean, I could understand that technically. Maybe, yeah. Maybe it couldn't keep up otherwise. But one I always remember, though, in terms of going off and doing your own thing, is I was playing Crackdown 2 many years ago on the Xbox 360, and you can invite somebody into that in your game, and they piss off and they're completing story missions.
Yes.
So they're like finishing the campaign for you, where you're at one half of the map collecting some agility orbs, and it comes up, you've killed this boss. And I'm like, what the fuck? Stop doing that, you twat.
Yeah, I'm trying to climb
That
this
really
building
annoyed me.
for
I'm
the
like, what
sixth
the-
time because I keep falling off.
That should not be allowed. You shouldn't be allowed to run off and chin bosses in other people's
story,
games.
I
And
know.
in Far Cry, you can only start missions as the boss, as the host, and that's how I feel it should be. But that did dog me off once. Somebody was finishing story missions in my Crackdown 2 world. That was a really weird situation to be in, and I guess they didn't think that through.
Or it was just like, yeah, whatever. Because most of Crackdown was like, yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Do you know what? I really like Crackdown, and Crackdown 2 left me really quite cold. And since then, there's all this blurb about the new one, and you've got an Xbox One, right? So you're probably excited for it, Vish. Vish, why do I keep calling you Vish? I know a guy at work called Vish, right? And to be fair, I haven't worked with him for several years because he's moved to another project. And yet I think it's I start saying Vic, and then my mind goes Vish. You don't look like a Vish. Yeah.
It's definitely not a fish.
So apologies.
No problem.
But yeah, you're probably excited for Crackdown. But I don't know. I said before on the podcast, I feel like Crackdown's unique selling point has been uniquely sold to me by many other games since, not least Far Cry and GTA and Saints Row and.
Yeah,
I think what their problem is they've sort of like been advertising it for so long, and certainly in my experience, was the case that if a game has been in development or been advertised for 4 or 5 years, when what is now the case, I think it's been sort of like in
a long time.
Yeah, it's just I can't remember any game that has been had its release date pushed back so many times and come out to actually be a worthwhile purchase. I mean, they were sort of like quite confused with the messaging initially as well. If I remember rightly, they first promised that this multiplayer portion of the game would be released first, and that the single player portion would come out sometime afterwards. And I was like, that makes no sense. But there you go. Who knows? I mean, I'm still keeping my fingers crossed, and of course I'll be there just for the fact that, as we said before, there are very few AAA games coming out on the Xbox. I'll be there to show my support, but I am not pinning my hopes on this being a fantastic gaming experience.
Yeah, I'm just worried it's going to be selling to people for nostalgia reasons and no other. But I mean, I said before, I'm hoping to be wrong. I mean, I'd love to dust off the Xbox One and play a bit of Crackdown if it turns out to be a brilliant experience. But no, I hope it will be. But I just, like I say, I don't see what it offers that nothing else offers these days, and that's perhaps where I think it might let itself down
I
a
think
bit.
it's missing a point, really, isn't it? There's no point to it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I don't know. It just hasn't quite got its own unique thing. It did have when it came out. It was like there were no games like it, and now all games are like it. It's like the original Crackdown. I mean, there's very little in the original Crackdown that hasn't been done to death and better.
Yeah, I think that's the point, isn't it? It's not just that it's been imitated; it's actually been improved on by other titles. So they're playing.
Yeah, so I mean, they're going to have to not only like it's like Tomb Raider. Those new Tomb Raider games are really good, but they just didn't have the impact they had because the Uncharted games had already done Tomb Raider, but better.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously you saw that, and I get that now because obviously I've played both sides. But if you were only on Xbox, then you didn't have that exposure.
That's true. Yeah, they would be really impressive actually if you hadn't played any of the Uncharted and you dropped into those new Tomb Raider games. They'd be fantastic.
I waxed lyrical about the Tomb Raiders and not for the more obvious and well documented reason, but I genuinely thought the new Tomb Raider, the one that launched the new Lara Croft, was an extraordinarily good game. I played that 3 or 4 times just to go through and enjoy the experience again. It was really, really well done. Yeah. I enjoyed the second one in a different way. Having played through all of the Uncharted since then, yeah, I can see there is more than a smattering of similarity between the two. But
yeah, it's funny because it's like, you know, pretty much Uncharted took over from Tomb Raider doing Tomb Raider's thing, and then
Tomb Raider
did it better. And then Tomb Raider came along and did it about as well, but not quite as well, and it just didn't quite shine. I mean, it's still very, very good games, actually, both those new Tomb Raider games.
There's the comparisons where something tries to do the same as something but falls short, and you go, well, yeah, it's a wannabe. But I think that what Tomb Raider does is if you put it up against Uncharted, it's very similar because they're doing the same thing. You've got a character who's going to search for things in different and rugged places. It's going to be the same stuff.
It's funny because it was Uncharted with the girl, and then they released an Uncharted with the girl.
Yeah, exactly. But it also did it really well. So the comparisons are there, but you look at it and you go, well, okay, you have your favourites among the two, but you know, you can't really split them with a bit of paper. So it's if you do it well. I think that's the bottom line. Have a story which carries it through, and whatever you deliver, even if it is not necessarily aping but is matching something else, just make sure you do it as well. That's it's not rocket science.
Yeah. No, I mean they're very good, but like I say, they just lost their impact for me by the fact that they were, let's face it, about the same quality as the Uncharted games. And but yeah, still very good. All right, well, I think it's probably that we're running out of time now.
We're about time where we would normally do a thing, and we're going to do a thing. It may not be the same thing, but it's another thing, I think.
Yes, that's right. It's time for the thing. So with that said, it's time to hand over to Tony for Tony's game. Hello and welcome to Tony's game. That's what he normally says, isn't
and
it?
He usually leaves that 3-second pause as well, which is such a ball.
Yeah, I left a big pause.
Because I've got to edit it out.
I left the pause deliberately.
God damn it.
I left the pause deliberately just to fill Simon's crevice, as they might say. Now, the scores in Tony's game so far are 0 to the guests, 0 to Tony, and 0 to Simon, and 0 to Victor. But we'll actually count this as Simon's game, I think, for this. Because I am feeling generous and I'm already winning by 8 points to 2 points to the guest and 4 points to John, I'm willing to sit this one out. I'll just be the question master, and you guys can try and win a point for your respective teams. So the game, Tony's game, is nothing like Simon's game. It's entirely different, right? So you have to listen carefully because the rules are no, the rules are quite significantly different, basically. Where Simon has 10 clues, we've got 11 minus 1 clues.
Okay.
Where Simon does a video game or a video game character, we've got a video game character or a video game.
Yeah.
So it's very different. Where Simon requests that you say stop, I'm asking you to say stop with an exclamation mark at the end. So that's how it works. So once you have you get one, and whereas in Simon's game you get one guess per clue, in mine you only get 0 plus 1 guesses per clue. So
this is really difficult.
Clear.
This is really different, Tony. You're gonna have to bear with me if I mess it up. I'll apologise in advance.
Yeah, I'll try and see if you can keep up, because I appreciate the game is very different. Yeah. It will be hard perhaps to get your eye in, but we'll see how we get on. So with that said, then for my game, this is I am, as Simon likes to put it, I am a video game character this time around. So if you would like to ask that after the first clue, just to, wind Simon up, then that would be great. Okay. So clue number 1. I've been in games that have sold over 50 million copies across the series.
Sorry, am I a game or a game character?
I'm a game character, John.
Thank you.
Well asked. Yeah.
Sorry,
okay, no guesses.
Because I was remembering I needed to ask that question. I didn't listen. I didn't hear the clue. What was the clue?
I've been in games that have sold over 50 million copies across the series.
Are you Luigi?
You have to say stop.
Oh, stop.
Stop with an exclamation point, please.
Stop, exclamation point.
I'm not Luigi, no. Okay. I'm glad we clarified that. Okay, clue number 2. I've been in games on almost every console going, including the Xbox 360, the PSP, the Wii, the PS4, etc. That
Stop,
doesn't
exclamation point. Are you Crash Bandicoot?
Yes. Fuck's sake. I thought nobody would go for Crash Bandicoot. That's why I made it Crash Bandicoot.
Did we just seriously have a 3-year-old callback?
Yes, it's a Crash Bandicoot was the answer. I couldn't think of another one. I thought nobody will guess Crash Bandicoot. Simon's not on. He's the only one that might think of Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah. God. Crash Bandicoot.
The other clues that we didn't get to. Sometimes I hide my face. I'm pretty fast. For a few years, I had a single partner, but not anymore, which is referring to the fact it was a PlayStation exclusive for first 4 years, I think. You can play me in another game that's not in my series. That was the reference to the Uncharted bit where you can play as Crash Bandicoot in the
video game console,
Uncharted 3 or 4. You can play me. I already had one. Clue number 7. There aren't many of my kind in games. I can't think of any other Bandicoots, to be honest. It seems fairly unfamiliar. I was first seen in 1996. You could say I have great expectations, was clue number 9. And clue number 10, which if you didn't get, I would have been very surprised, was simply Ooga Booga. Being the name that the funny little mask thing says. I can't believe you got that, Vic. Did you just get it because you knew I was going to say Crash Bandicoot, or did you?
No. I was just really, as soon as you said 50 million, okay, I thought Mario would be too obvious. That's why I went for Luigi for the first clue. But when you said I've been on all these different consoles, the only other person I could think of was Sonic. But I thought that's again a little bit too obvious, and I thought, okay, let's just go with Crash Bandicoot. That's got to be it. I mean, apart from those guys, I couldn't even make another educated guess.
The only reason that I put that clue there is because I always associated Crash Bandicoot with PlayStation, so putting that clue about it being on multiple consoles was a sort of deliberate red herring to try and throw you off, you see, because I didn't realise Crash Bandicoot had been on so many different consoles. I was under the impression that it was pretty much a PlayStation exclusive, so I was surprised to learn that today, and I thought, well, nobody will know that. And I deliberately worded the later clue as I used to have a single partner, but not anymore. Well, I didn't say I'm exclusive to a console because that would have been too obvious. I thought that would have given it away. So I'm impressed and disappointed in equal measure.
I just got lucky, and like I know a little bit sad that Simon isn't here to see my claim to fame. 2 clues. That's all I needed.
I'm sure he'll be listening and cursing your very name. So at the end of that, then the scores for Simon's game, even though this was Tony's game, but it's slightly different, as I said. They are 8 to me, 3 to the guests, and 4 to producer John. So the guests are pulling up the lead. So everything to play for in next time's Simon's game. So there we go. That was Tony's game, which was a bit of a disaster. Shot down in flames. I spent ages organising those clues into order and everything. I came up with the clues and I thought, those are too obvious. I'll put the difficult ones. I thought that one about it being on every console, that's like really obscure. That doesn't tell you anything about the game. And then Vic, bang, knocks it out of the park.
I'm sorry.
Hate my life.
I have to say, I've got a newfound respect for how hard it is to come up with a Simon's game now. I deliberately came up with the hardest clues I could think of for that one. So I thought it was fairly obvious, and somebody might have got the reference because we've had a bit of a reference to Crash Bandicoot a number of times in this podcast. But I didn't expect anyone to nail it that quickly, and you've ruined my evening, Vic, basically.
Well, congratulations on that. Well done.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's worth far more than a point in Simon's game.
That is actually the aim of Simon's game. I mean, the score is almost immaterial. The goal of Simon's game is just to ruin...
There's 2 points to Simon's game.
Johnny's evening.
Yeah, to ruin my evening if I don't win.
Beat you at the end of the series.
To deliberately screw me over at the end of a series. And then the other point of Simon's game is for me to piss Simon off by asking him whether or not it's a video game or a video game character. So there's like 3 main reasons for having Simon's game in the podcast, as well as to end the podcast. But, okay, well, I guess it's time to wrap up. And so thanks a lot for coming on, Vic. It's been good. So I think so. It's good to get you on what is possibly the first parenting / video gaming podcast crossover.
I particularly like the new birth stuff really worked well. I think that's going to go down well with our listener.
Yeah, I'm sure the listeners were like brushing their teeth listening to the podcast and like spitting the toothpaste out at Vic's description.
Lovely.
And if people are not spitting tea on their monitors when Vic says about wearing his missus as a sock bucket, then I'm the Pope.
Oh dear.
So on that rather charming note, I think it's time for us to wrap up. So thanks for producing,
Thank
John.
You.
And thanks for listening, listeners, and we will see you all next time. Don't forget, we're on Twitter at Balls on a Tray. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/Balls on a Tray. And we're on YouTube. I think this podcast should be up there. And John's sticky bit in the middle, a sort of 5 to 10 minute video segment every couple of weeks. That's a bit of fun. So check that out as well. That should be on our YouTube channel. And so, okay, great. We'll see you next time.
None of those clues meant anything to me.
Oh, it was a proper Vienna quiz for you, was it?
Rubbish.
I miss Simon. I really do. I appreciate how hard Simon's game is now, having tried to do it and failed.